Alright, this is Zhanming Tian, and now I'm going to introduce my FIC chat room application. Firstly, the purpose of this application is to realize real-time communication through chat room with multiple users. Let me view the history of chat and post a message on the chat room, and let everyone else see the new message in real time. The technique I use in this application includes three parts: front-end, back-end, and database. In the front end, I use HTML, CSS, and Bootstrap 5 for static website. And I use jQuery and EJS handles for parameter and variables for dynamic changing. In backend, I use Node.js with Express.js web development framework. I also use Socket.io to realize the communication between users. Express Session handles for user session, and bcrypt.js handles for user password encryption. For the database, I use MongoDB Atlas, where I put my data online. For the code structure, I strictly follow the MVC structure. Here you can see app.js, where is the main entrance of Express.js. You can see it is definitely the server side of the socket and user session. While the root folder handles for the URL, post and get requests. Here you can see login, register, and logout, right? Well, in the view folder, it contains HTML files. And here is the chat room, EJS, and you can see how I submit the forms and how I use the socket to get the message. And in login, I use the user login, and you can see I use Ajax to handle in the login form and post the user information. And the register is also the same way. Well, in Model, there are three files. Well, index.js is connected to the database, and message.js handles for the message data type and to store it to the database. And the user.js, you can see right here, I encrypt the user password stored in the database, so it's much safer. In public folder, I only store CSS. You can see, so it's handled for the style of my website. Well, in the controller folder, there are four functions. It will check if a user is online or not. In the chat room.js, before user is coming to the chat room, he must log in, right? So he needs authentication. In the chat room, mainly about get message from a database. In the chat socket, it mainly for post the message to the server side and store it in the database. And the user simply log in, register, and log out. The design in my application is pretty simple. User log in and log out, and real-time chatting with Socket.io and MongoDB. For the user session, if a new user comes, he must register and check the username if it exists. So if not exists, then into database. It will check with the MongoDB. And if success, going to login. Login check if the username exists and try the password. Success, then go to chat room. And log out, then go back to login. In the real-time communication, you can see right here. If user A send message to the server socket, all the users receive the emit message. And then the server socket will store the message to MongoDB. I use three websites for citations, which are Express.js generator from Express.js website, Bootstrap 5 documentation to help me build the front end, and Socket.io to help me realize the real-time communications. So now is the demo part. I first log in with a not registered user, and you will see that username not exist. So let's register a new account, which is Elliot. Okay, you can see after register, it shows that new user created. And let's register another account. Notice that you cannot create an account with an existing username, so it will output that username already existed. So let's create another account, Brandon. Okay, finished. So let's log into this account. Okay, in the Elliot, you can see it is blank. So now let's log into Brandon. You cannot log in if password is wrong, so you need to input the correct one. You can see the message is dynamically updated. So now let's log out. However, after I leave, you can also store the chat message. You can log in and see the message again. Now you can see the previous message, right? And we can also say something else, even Brandon is not in this chat room. And Brandon, after a login, can still see the message. And Brandon can also say message and update it in both sides. Okay, so that's mainly about my project. And thank you, I hope you enjoy.